What if I told you that by the end of this video, you will have OpenMediaVault 7 set up on your network with a basic configuration so you can have your files stored not only on your computer but on the network as well, and available to all the computers on your network. A NAS like OpenMediaVault is a great way to get started for beginners to get a taste of what a NAS or network attached storage can offer. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is navigate to the OpenMediaVault website, openmediavault.org. Once you're here, we can go to the download link, and you'll want to download the stable version. As of this recording, the latest ISO image is 7.0.32. Click the download button, and it will go ahead and start downloading. I'm going to cancel this because I've already downloaded this, but you'll want to save the file to your computer. But we can't stop here. We've got to get the ISO image onto the Proxmox server because we're going to run this in a VM to start. Navigate to your Proxmox server. In my case, it's 172.16.74.228, port 8006. And to upload the ISO to your Proxmox, we're going to go to the storage node. In my case, it's PVE02 store. We'll go to ISO images, upload, and we'll select the file that you saved on your computer. Generally in downloads, and you'll select the ISO image from here, OpenMediaVault, and you select open and then upload. I've already got the file on the server, so we're going to proceed to the next step. We've made it through gathering the actual files we need, and now we can move on to actually doing the install in a VM. We're going to, at the top here, say create VM. We're going to give it a custom VM ID. I'm going to call it VM ID 300, and we're going to call it OMV-YT2. Go to the OS tab. If you've got more than one storage location configured on your Proxmox server, you'll want to select the appropriate storage location. We're going to select PVE02 store, hit the drop down, and we've got the OpenMediaVault ISO image right there. Continue to system. We're going to leave the defaults. Continue to disks. And for this, we will again keep the defaults. Continue on to the CPU tab. We're going to give this 8 CPU cores. It can run in as little as 2, but like all things in computers, more is better, generally. Continue to memory. We'll give it 8 gigs of RAM. It does not necessarily require this much, but like I said, more is better. Network. Keep the defaults. Confirm, and then down at the bottom, start after created, and click finish. And here on the left hand side, we'll click on VM 300 and the console tab in the center. Step 4, select your language, hit enter. Select your region or country, hit enter. Key map, same thing. And the next thing it'll prompt you for is your host name. This may take a moment. Alright, we are going to back this off, and we're going to call this OMVYT2 and hit enter for the host name. Enter to accept the default for the domain. Enter a root password. Confirm the root password. Alright, next we're going to select the time zone. For me, this is correct, Eastern. Hit enter. Alright, here we go again. Select the Debian Archive Mirror country. United States is correct for me. Select the Debian Archive Mirror. Generally, you can go with the default here. If you find something in the list that is closer to your physical location, then you can go ahead and select that. I'm going to go with the default. It's going to ask you if you want to use a proxy. This is going to be specific to your setup. I am not using a proxy, so I'm just going to hit enter to move forward. Okay, now we're on to the Grub bootloader section, and we need to select the hard drive, or virtual hard drive in this case, that we want to install the bootloader on. At this point, we've only got one drive, and so we'll hit the down arrow and select that to continue. Alright, we've reached the end of the installation. What we need to do at this point before we restart the computer is remove the virtual ISO from the VM so that it doesn't try to boot from it when we restart. We'll go to the Hardware tab. We'll double click on CD DVD drive and we'll select Do Not Use Any Media. Hit OK. Move back to the Console tab and hit enter to continue for reboot. Here we are at the boot screen, hit enter. Alright, at this point we can grab the IP address from the screen that's shown and we'll move to a new tab and open that up and log in for the first time. I've navigated to the IP address of our server. We're going to log in. Username admin. Password OpenMediaVault, all lowercase, no spaces. We're going to start off by running updates. On the left side, move to System, Update Management, and select Updates. You'll see here on the left side a down arrow with a number on the top of it. We're going to click that to start the process, click confirm, and yes. While we're waiting for this to go through, while we're waiting for the updates, the reason this is important is because the developer of OpenMediaVault does not release a new ISO install image every time there's a new update to OpenMediaVault. By installing the updates now, we will avoid potential problems if we were to configure other things first and then run a big update. Alright, now that we've got the end of line message at the bottom of our upgrade screen, we can go ahead and click close. It's showing a yellow bar with pending configuration. Click the check mark and yes. And at this point, we want to restart our system to make sure everything is working properly. Go up to the top right corner and select reboot. Confirm, yes, and give it a minute to come back up. We're off to the races. Let's log back in and configure the dashboard. admin, OpenMediaVault. First thing we're going to do is get rid of the donate bar. Click the X. And in the information bar, it says to click the link to go to the settings page. And we can select the widgets that we want enabled. We'll just select a few of these. CPU utilization, file systems, load average, memory, services, system information, time, updates available, and uptime. And then we will save this, and you'll see the dashboard populate. This is one easy way to get good information about your system at a glance when you first log in. Let's move on to step 7, and we'll get storage disks set up and start the configuration process. We'll start by shutting down the system. And we'll jump back to Proxmox. We'll move to the hardware tab, and we're going to add 2 additional virtual hard disks. Go to Add, Hard Disk, select the storage location. For the sake of this particular demo, I'm going to put it on Freak, which is actually my Synology box. We're going to give this 40 gigs, click Add, and we'll repeat the process for the next disk. Now we can go back to the console tab, click Start Now, and once this is restarted, we'll go back to the web interface. Okay, let's jump back to the web interface. Log back in again. Now we're going to make those drives available to the system. We're going to go to Storage on the left side, Disks. We should see 3 disks now, and you can see they're labeled under Device SD A, B, and C, and under serial number, because we're running in Proxmox, they're labeled Drive SCSI 0, 1, and 2. Let's move on to File Systems. Click the plus button at the top, select ButterFS. You can select ext4 if you'd like, or XFS. All 3 are solid choices. For my purposes, I'm going to go with ButterFS. We are going to make this a RAID 1, and then we need to select the devices. We'll select the 2 drives that we added. They're both matching at 40 gigabytes, and click Save. We can close this window. And here on this screen, we are going to select File System, which is the one we just created, Dev SDB with ButterFS 40 gigabytes, and select Save. Click the check mark, and yes. Okay, you can see here in the right column, this file system is online, but there's no check mark under referenced. Let's continue our configuration. We're going to go to Shared Folders. We're going to click the plus to add. We're going to call this Test. Select the file system, click Save, the check mark in the yellow bar, and yes. We're not done yet though. We need to enable the service that actually shares this over our network. Let's move to Services, SMB CIFS, Settings, and we're going to enable. Scroll to the bottom of the screen and click Save. Click the check mark in the yellow bar, and yes. And then on the left menu side, we are going to go to Shares, Add, select a shared folder. We've only got one. You can add a comment if you'd like. Click Save. Check mark in the yellow bar. Yes. Alright, that's a lot of configuration. How do we verify that all this is actually working? Let's do our first verification step here. We're going to go to the Storage tab on the left, click Shared Folders, and here is our first success metric. We've got a check mark under Referenced. But before we can actually check this on other machines, we need to make sure that we add a user. Let's do that next. We're going to go to the Users on the left side, and Users again. Click the blue plus to add. We're going to create, and under name, we're going to add the username. Don't be confused thinking that you might want to add a person's full name. This is their username. In many cases, this is going to be something like their first initial and their last name. Email is optional, and enter a password for that user. Okay, and an important step that you don't want to miss is you need to add the user to a group. So down here under Groups, we're going to scroll down and make sure that they are part of the Users group. Click Save, the check mark in the yellow bar, and yes again. And we're done adding our first user. If you have an eagle eye, you may have noticed when we click this plus sign here, there was a second option, and that is to import users. If you don't want to add users one at a time, you can import using a CSV file. But that's beyond the scope of this video. We might circle around to that in a future video. Alright, so let's jump over to our Windows machine and test from our first remote system. Alright, so we're here on our Windows machine. The first thing we want to do is open up Windows Explorer. We can do that by clicking the folder at the bottom of the screen, or we can use the shortcut Windows and the E key. We're going to come up here to the top and enter in // the IP address of our OpenMediaVault, / and the name of our share, which was test. And in this case, since we've got the same username and password set up both on our Windows machine and our OpenMediaVault, it's not going to prompt us for a password. If the passwords were different, you would receive a prompt. All right, so to show this is working, we're going to right click over here. We're going to say New Folder, and we're going to call this one Windows. And just for grins, we can go into that folder. We can right click and say New, and we'll say text document, hit enter one more time. This is a test from Windows. Close that, save. Okay. Let's test it from macOS. All right, Mac users, let's do the same process from the macOS side. We can start the connection process in one of two ways. We can either hit Command K to open up the server connection window, or we can go to the top of the Finder screen to the Go menu and select Connect to Server. Either way, it'll bring up this Connect to Server dialog box. Enter in the proper IP address and hit Enter to connect. It'll prompt you, click Connect. And again, in this case, our password is the same. It did not prompt us. We have a folder that says Windows. We can open that. We can open our text file, and we can say edited from macOS. Close that. Okay to save. But let's go one step further. Let's create a folder, and we're going to call that macOS. We are going to just grab files off my desktop from, let's say, July, drag them over here, and they are on our OpenMediaVault NAS. But hey, we primarily talk about Linux on this channel, so let's do the same process from a Linux machine. Okay, we're here on our Linux Ubuntu machine. Let's run through the same process. We're going to go to the left side to our file manager. We're going to scroll down to the bottom of the panel on the left, select other locations, And at the bottom, we're going to enter server address in the format smb:// our IP address /test. One thing I want to point out that's different between Windows and Linux, and macOS for that matter, is that Windows uses backslashes, so the top of the slash goes to the left. Linux and macOS use forward slashes or just slashes. The top of the slash goes to the right. We'll hit connect. In this case, it's going to prompt us. We're going to select registered user and enter our password. And look at that, we've got folders for both macOS and Windows. Let's go to the Windows folder first. We're going to edit our document. Also edited from Linux, Ubuntu. We're going to close that, save, and we'll go back up here. We'll go to macOS, and those are all screenshots. So we'll just open one of those, and we can see this is a screenshot I captured for my Unigit UI video, and we'll close that up. For the sake of argument, let's make one more folder. We'll call it Linux. We'll open another window on our Linux machine. We're going to go to Documents, and we're just going to select everything that's in that folder, and we're going to drag it over here to Linux. Copied 11 files. Close the folder on the left and verify that those files are in fact there. For a final verification, let's go back to our Mac system and show that we can see all the files that have been moved to our NAS. Okay, we're back here on the Mac system. We can open up a Finder window. 74.86 is our OpenMediaVault. We've got the test share. And look at that, Linux, macOS, Windows. We've got the files copied from Linux. We can open up the spreadsheet file. And that does in fact open. Probably just a demo file. We'll close that. And we can see again the changes that were made on the Linux system in that text document. Now, wasn't that something? Going from a bare VM to a working OpenMediaVault install and testing from Linux, macOS, and Windows. There is more that we can do with OpenMediaVault, but that's going to have to wait for another video. Until then, happy exploring, be curious.